Okay. So don't worry about these exercises of work. We're working at folio 1, right? We have 3 folios, and the first one is really about let me share my screen, my desktop. So the first one is going to be about understanding, creating an image of this space. You can choose whatever of them you want, but I think it's best to be underneath the arches, because what we're trying to understand is that enclosure, and that's how we create the drawing. So I'm going to pull up some previous student work to show what the folio consists of. You can include the studies that we did. The reason we do the skeletal letters is to understand the transformation of those shapes. So today we're going to look a little more closely at ellipses. And we're going to try to identify. Don't worry if you don't have this printed out. And what I will do this week is try to have all these pages available for you guys, so I could send them out as well, just in case. Worst case, you have a few extra copies. And the reason we do the letter forms, we're trying to understand where they occur in this space and how they're transformed. So the folio of student work. And I owe you a description of that. I will provide that. I'm so I'm going to share a different screen now. And then I'm going to send you this document afterwards, even though it's a little bit out of date. I just want people to generally understand, and I'm going to start another share, how the course is structured. And how it's changed from other years. So view. Is 200% too much? That's all right. Another email. So I'm going to copy this stuff into the email, and then I'm going to send you you know what, I'm just going to send you this, what I send. I just copied what I have in this document because the date is wrong, and I'm going to send it to you guys in the email. So let's see if I did that correctly. Yes. Okay. So folio 1 is what we're working on until we finish that. So all the work that we're doing up to this point is leading up to that. And folio 1 is the ink scribble drawing, and then Prismacolor pencil drawing on tone paper, right? So these are the drawings that you're going to be expected to produce for folio 1. Now, in the past, we've drawn them on an illustration board, or basically on a high quality paper material. Now, the illustration board was convenient. We're in class, and we're working in a classroom, and you have that board in front of you. So basically, in recent years, I have allowed students to substitute any type of high quality paper for illustration board. So illustration board is going to be the heaviest or the highest quality paper, but you can use I don't have the cover of the paper with me. I have it presented on my, I have it as an underlay for my desk here. But you can, I'm hoping that what happens is that you guys are so enamored with the work that you do that you'll wish that you did it on the best quality paper possible, right? So avoid plain old printer paper. If you can, use some kind of high quality sketch pad or paper. If you want to use illustration board, you can. The other reason that it's difficult to work with illustration board virtually is that we typically buy it in large sheets and then cut it up in class, and I show people how to cut it and mat it and that kind of thing. We really can't do that this time around. So these drawings are what we're going to focus on for folio 1. And that's what I sent you an email, all 3 of these components of the class. So for the first part, Okay. So for the first part of it, these drawings that we've done, right, with the letter forms. Let me get the ones I did completed. I haven't, I don't seem to have them there, but I'll just sketch a little bit about it. So when you draw the letter O, for example, or if we draw a square, right? We're gonna study this picture. So what you can do to have that picture in front of you, the one I sent you in the email, if you download it from your email, let me see. So now I'm sharing my email screen and a bunch of other junk that I have in front of me. So this is the picture that I sent you. Because it's very large, the email program requires me to set up a OneDrive link. You should all have access to OneDrive. Is there anybody who had any trouble clicking on this picture and getting that image? Does anybody need help with that, right? So if you click that, it's a very high resolution picture of the library. Now, all these things that I wish we could do that we can't do is go to the library and draw inside this space. I think I can share. This keeps getting stuck in my chair. Okay, so there's the picture. And where is my desk? Picture of my desk. Okay, so can you now, do you see the picture of my drawing desk and the image next to me, next to it on the left? Is that what you see?
Yeah, we can see your desk.
Okay, good. You see the image of the library. Okay. So the study drawings that I'm going to ask people to make here's some larger sheets of higher quality paper. So when students go in and do these studies of the capital, right? The column, these are what are called Tuscan columns, right? So a Tuscan column, and this should have significance to you. Don't worry about right now, oh, what's a Tuscan column? What's a Tuscan, this was given as a gift to me and it talks to me sometime. I'm just gonna put it somewhere. So there are different style historical columns: Doric, Ionic, Corinthian. At some point, a Tuscan style, I believe it started in Italy, and this is a type of column. So if I'm looking at a section through a column, right there, I'm looking at this. This is what I see in front of me now. Roughly. Don't worry if you can't manage this right now, but I'm describing what I see. So if I cut through this column and look down, I look at something that's circular, right? If I look this way, if I look at the base of the column, I mean, there are more parts here than I can describe. I'm not being particularly careful about that, but why? So why did we talk about letter forms? This is A. This is B. If I'm looking at B, I see these sort of concentric rings. And then the base of the column itself. All right, I haven't drawn it correctly, but this is sort of a section through the column, right? So I want to get started understanding what I see in perspective in this photograph. And in order to be able to draw it, I'm asking for you guys to understand that that circle, when it's projected the way these columns are, right, which is actually in perspective, lines converge to a point. But if I'm looking at just the column, just the base of the column, I see something like this, right? So if I look at the alphabet, let's imagine that I draw the alphabet into a bunch of squares. N, O, and imagine that's a perfect circle. It's not. But how do I inscribe that circle or this circle into what I'm looking at in this picture, which is, let's see if I can annotate it. Oh, so I can see that picture, but I can't draw on it. I'm not sure why. Let me do a new, let me share, new share. Don't want the, well, okay, I'm going to have to do this one at a time. I'm going to move this out of the way and revert to just what's going on here. So I'm assuming that you guys have on your monitor this image, which you could see a little bit better than I have printed out here. But what I want to draw to study are these parts. The base of the column, the top of the column. Can somebody tell me what this is called? The generic term for what's on top of the column? The capital, right? So this is what a Tuscan column looks like. Then we have arches that connect them, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So the one thing I want to focus on is the column base. So I know with the letter N, O, if I were to take the letter O and project it orthographic, isometrically, not in perspective. Remember, perspective has foreshortening. So that which is closer does everybody know what foreshortening means? Things that are closer to me appear larger. So in perspective, that rectangle, this side, B, if you will, is longer than A, right? In the drawing I made here, which I didn't do very carefully, I'm going to call this Paraline. Paraline means the axes are given equal weight. So in this case, A and B are equal. A equals B. In this case, A is less than B because this is in perspective. This is why all my all the sleeves on my clothing have ink marks on them for doing things like this. So that circle now is tangent at 4 points to in the square that inscribes it, in which it's inscribed, right? So the tangents I need to draw a little bit bigger here, so I'm just gonna work a little bit larger. These are the points of tangency. They are at the midpoint of the edges of that square as it's projected parametrically, not in perspective. What we're looking at in the picture is perspective. This is perspective. Can't see if I can't draw on that perspective. So in order to, we're working our way up to the perspective projection. So first I want to understand the Paraline projection. This is going to be an ellipse. Practice a couple times drawing that, right? And the ellipse is inscribed perfectly inside that square. And the major axis is horizontal and the minor axis is vertical. Okay, so what's the drawing that I'm trying to make? I could do it backwards. I could start with the ellipse and then do something like this. And then find the midpoints to double check that my drawing is done correctly. Let me see if I can zoom in on this picture. And what I'm going to try to do is take this photograph and zero in on a part of it and draw it a little bit bigger so that you guys can see what I'm doing. But what I'd like for you guys to draw is just imagine the shape in a plan. And then the Paraline projection is the one where the axes are given equal weight. Then the perspective projection is the one where these lines converge. And if I were to draw that, somewhere in my drawing there would be a horizon line. I have pictures of you guys in front of my drawing and I can't see it. somewhere in my drawing is a horizon. And at some point on that horizon is a point called a vanishing point. And parallel lines converge to that point. Okay, I didn't draw them very well over here, but if I were to construct them, you can use the straight edge if you like. And what that means, okay, so let me finish. This is a perspective. And then the Paraline, an isometric drawing is a special case of a Paraline drawing. The angles are 30 degrees. This is a 30-degree triangle, right? So I don't have a drawing table here, but if I drew that's 30 degrees, right? That would be 60 degrees inside there. So this is a special case. This is isometric. Isometric drawings are good to explain something, to explain an assembly. You see those kits of things that you have to put together, usually made in some foreign country, and they have this isometric drawing where all the axes are given equal weight. So what are we doing? Ellipses. Find the midpoint. And then the ellipse is drawn into that shape, and it should be tangent at those midpoints if they're done correctly. It's not easy. It's not terribly easy to do. I'm not doing a very good job of it today. Don't worry about drawing over what you've already drawn. In perspective, so in a Paraline drawing, the ellipse lies flat, like this, would parallel in a Paraline drawing where the axes are given equal weight. The ellipse is flat. The effect, as I explained last week, is that the spandrels, and the term spandrel is what's given to the space between the circle and the bounding rectangle. That's the spandrel. When this gets distorted, the spandrel becomes elongated on one side and compressed on the other. You can see this, you can see the shape, the difference in the shape. So in our working our way up to this drawing, we're trying to understand that projection. Finally, you're going to get to a point. Think of this as the training wheels, right? Everybody learned to ride a bike with training wheels. I didn't. I was, when I learned to ride a bike, they just pushed you along. You fell until one day, somehow you kept going. But I knew what training wheels were. We didn't participate in that. Then at some point, I expect that you're going to look at a picture like this and say, I want to do a study of that column base because I know it's in perspective. I start doing something like this. And I'm not taking this and figuring out where that point of convergence is. I'm guessing at that convergence somewhere on the horizon where these lines taper toward each other. And then I see that one I know what happens in perspective because I studied that. And these are concentric circles. Some of them larger than others. Then there's something vertical that happens. I should have said you can work in whatever drawing instrument that you're comfortable with. You don't have to do this part of it now, but this is what we're working toward understanding. Something like that. And that continues around to the other side. So somehow or other, we're working our way toward understanding the letter O inscribed in a square, then flattening it, then inscribing it in perspective. That's actually what we're looking at. The ellipse gets slightly slanted. But as long as you maintain those points of tangency at the edges, you ought to be able to get that fairly right. One, two. Let's try it again here. Let's see how carefully I can manage it in here. No, it's probably more foreshortened than that. Right. Three. Four. So somebody want to, shall we look at a couple of your sketches and then we'll take a break for a little bit? Does somebody want to volunteer? Or feel free to tell me, Sandro, are you crazy? You want to look at sketches now? Why don't you wait till after the break? That's fine too. But if anybody wants to volunteer a drawing for me to look at. So what we're trying to do is, again, the plan projection to some kind of isometric paraline, and then perspective projection. That doesn't mean that every time you go out into the field, into where there's a bunch of columns in front of you, that you're going to be doing all these steps. But what's important is that at some point you understand that that's what you're looking at. So let me see if I'm going to try to open this picture in a different program. I know I've done this before, so I probably have it here somewhere. Basically opening up the photograph and then drawing right into the picture. The other thing that I'd like for you guys to do, but I didn't give you an enlarged version of this. And let me see if I can prepare that now. Maybe I can do it with this. Let me, new share. New share. Can you see the photograph in this screen? Okay. So what I'm going to try to do with my annotate tool is draw the neat thing about the annotate tool, let me zoom in on this. This is not allowing me to do that. I'm not sure why. All right. You see an enlarged photograph. Is that right? Good. This is drawing very, very thick lines, and that's bugging me. How can I fix that? Well, that'll have to do for now. That's what I'm trying to get us to see. Um, Because this is in perspective, whoops, sorry. Those are the shapes that we're looking at. Okay. Okay, we'll break for 10 minutes and then see if anybody wants to volunteer a drawing, or we'll keep practicing it and then try to produce the base drawing, okay?
Do you want us drawing like the top of the column too?
You're muted.
Thank you. I think one class students waited a half hour to tell me that. It's too bad. So does somebody want to show me something they're working on for a little bit of feedback? Skylar? Let's start with you. You're at the top left of my screen. So.
Yeah, sorry, we're having to like mute different computers, so it took us a while. So I just kind of like drew what you did down here, with like
Okay.
different circles and stuff.
How can I? Okay, hold that up for a second. Can you leave it there? Is that too uncomfortable to hold there for a minute? And I'm going to share a screen and tell you what I see and how I think we can improve it. So what we're looking at there's a couple things that I see, and one of these is it's called the football effect, right? What sometimes happens with the ellipses is when you're trying to draw them, you end up doing something like this. I'm exaggerating now, right? And you see how these ends come to a point, and they start to. You want to avoid that, and the way to avoid that, first off, in general, when you draw the ellipse, you could do that major, minor axis, and then go around it till you get sort of an even thing, because you really want the edges around. So in your top leftmost drawing, you almost have it, but then, you know, the one next to it, it starts to get pointy at the edges, and that's what you want to avoid. Scroll up so I can see the base of the capital. Yeah, that's not bad. It looks like you did that a little later, and you have that a little bit more in hand. You started to get the idea that you're displacing concentric circles, and that's the idea, right? They're concentric circles of different sizes. And if you draw enough of them, you can just identify one or two that help you create that part. That's all you need to do. It comes pretty naturally. That's quite good. Good.
Okay.
That comes pretty naturally after a while, but you guys need to give yourself the freedom to do this. When I took this class in college many years ago, 40 years ago, as a matter of fact, my instructor had us fill a page with ellipses. What's the point in that? The point in that is that if you do enough of these, somewhere along the line, you're going to have some happy accidents, and you can identify them like this. You see how they become the basis of the structure of the drawing. Greta, let me see what you're doing. You're in the same room as Skylar?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Gee, that's how do I make you guys bigger?
In the top corner,
Okay.
3 dots, you can pin my video.
I can what? Really? Let's see. In the top corner, 3 dots.
Click on it, and then there should be something that says pin video.
I got 6 dots. Oh, 3 dots. Pin video, pin. And where did it go? All right, it wasn't very successful. Let me see. All right, well, that's a little bit better. Okay. Keep proportions in mind. What I'm looking at, that's a really beautiful study that you did in the middle left over there. You're starting to become freer with your hand and the ellipses. You see what happens when you do that, when you force yourself to explore that. The other parts, I'm just going to say, are keep your proportions in mind. When we do this, right, you might want to try because you want to persuade the viewer that this is the same shape, that A, B, and C are the same thing. So when it gets foreshortened in space, when it gets transformed, moved, it's not going to remain like that, right? It's going to get really flattened, and then the ellipse is going to get right. So they're becoming too frontal. So you have to tilt them back a bit more and keep the proportions in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Laura, do you want to show me what you're doing?
Sure. I haven't really finished the whole base because I was just kind of like practicing.
Oh, don't worry about that, guys. Hey, I'm not.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. Look at the study. So what do? Add pin, replace pin, replace pin. Oh, all right. So that just moves it up there.
I think you have to go to like my box.
Yeah, I'm in your box. I'm trying to make it bigger. I guess I can't make it bigger. Make it big.
I think when you're in screen share, you can't pin someone's video. I think you have to like end your screen share. Pin
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's how.
Oh, allow me. All right. Stop share. Pin. It says remove pin. Where to go? All right. Spotlight for everyone. Oh, look at that. I learned something new. Be careful for the football dead center there. Can I annotate this? Let me see if I can do some annotate. Why should I be able to find that? Because I need it right now, so I can't find it. More. No. Okay. By your left index finger, not the one closest to it, but the one just above it, that's nearly perfect.
Okay.
Do you see what's going on there? You're starting to get control of the horizontal, like the other ones are coming out like cookie dough, right? They're like all different shapes, but when you retain that control and try to get the motion, get your hand, but that one is quite nearly, because if you drew a horizontal line and a vertical line through it, you'll find it's almost exactly 4 equal parts, and that's what you want to achieve.
Okay.
But that's fine. That's great progress.
Thank you.
So whatever I did, view. Okay, who's next? Bridget. Adds, replace spotlight. Oh, there we go. Oh my God, I didn't know you could do this. These are great.
Thank you.
That bottom left is really trying to get it. Are you guys trying to start to get the sense how, like, if I just gave you that picture and asked you to start drawing it, how different it is that you started doing these shapes first, and that's a marvelous study of the dark side of that column in anticipation of what we're going to do later. I mean, we're going to work with straight lines, but for the most part, and on the bottom right, that you've identified the tangent points of that ellipse makes it that much more successful. Do you see what's going on there? She figured out the midpoints there. That's very good. Very good. And that they're really, really coming along. And that's wonderful that you filled that whole vertical space with the ellipses. Well done.
Thank you.
Let's go to somebody else in that room. Daisy. Daisy, Daisy. You know that song, right?
Yes, I do know that song.
Yeah, of course. They probably sang it to you. Oh, let's see. Pin.
Here's what
Replace
I have.
spotlight. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So I have this. I don't know.
Okay.
Still kind of.
Okay. The ellipses are coming out fine where they're not constrained by the rectangle. Somehow the rectangle is making you bend it, but you don't want to bend it. You want to keep it. You're drawing them perfectly. Top left, the two standalone ones are coming out perfectly.
Okay.
Just keep in mind, now you want to take those ellipses and draw those into that tic-tac-toe box that you have in the middle there. Yeah,
okay.
That's what the shape of the ellipse is, right? So,
okay.
But that's quite good, and so is the base of that of the column. You're starting to really have that problem in hand. Caitlin, do you want to share yours?
Yep, I'll share mine.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I mean, do you see how you can tell when that thing is just sitting flat on the surface? That you know, this is one of the reasons we'll look at this. We'll look at these more closely, but you know, you look at it's a circle like that, but when that ellipse is correct, you see what happens? It just sits there flat, and that's what she's done in that drawing. It's remarkable that you did that. There's got to be a lot of work that led up to that. Or
Yeah, and then I did have a question, Sandra. Do you have tips on drawing the base in perspective? Because I think I was it took me honestly probably a long time to even draw the base. And I feel like I was getting more tripped up on drawing the base rather than drawing the actual ellipse, like once I had the base set.
Sure. Sure. Let me share a screen and I'll speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
We're going to look at these drawings a little more closely, but in general, one way to think about what happens to the base, right? You can try this, for example. Start with the ellipse and identify the points of tangency. Now, in perspective, something slightly different happens. So I'm going to exaggerate it. In perspective, the ellipse drops off a little bit. It gets slightly bent because it gets foreshortened. But a way to think about it is that if you identify the points of tangency, then you know that the edges of the column of the base have to touch there. So draw a line, right? If you want to draw the isometric, try to draw the next line parallel to that. If you want to draw the perspective, that line, these lines are parallel. In the perspective, those lines converge. So you would have something like that going on. But it isn't important. It's not important that you do it exactly. And one way to do it, you could do it with a straight edge to approximate. You draw one line like that, and then you just take it and, move it over and tilt it, right? Then it's going to converge somewhere out in the horizon out there. Then the lines, provided it's a single point perspective, you would draw something like that. Then the base, and that line would also converge slightly. See what I'm doing here? This assumes a single point perspective, by the way, 1 point. That is, the lines parallel in this direction do not converge, and which you will often have. So you'd have something like that. I didn't do it quite so well there. So these lines eventually meet in perspective. But what you're going to want to do eventually is you're going to want to guess that. You're going to want to draw a line and say there's another line over here that's slightly more skewed. With a little bit of practice, you can get that. And another line that's slightly more that way. Do you see what I'm doing with that? And once you've figured out the orientation of the ellipse, you repeat it. I mean, that changes as you go to the top of the column, because when you're looking up at it, right, what happens up here? Well, those lines converge downward. So it's the reverse, right? at the top of the column, that's what happened. And then you're looking up at the ellipse. It's still the same shape. Right? But because I'm looking up at it, it isn't the bottom I see, but the emphasis is on the top. You see? Looking up. Again, you're not going to nail it in terms of like that's going to be exact. This is just it's guiding your hand. It's like you're understanding what you're looking at because you see those underlying shapes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who hasn't gone that wants to show me something? Okay, go ahead, Natasha, and then Paige.
Do you want to pin my?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes. I have to stop sharing this, and then Natasha gets replace spotlight. Okay. Wow, great. There's some very successful parts of it. See, you guys are starting to recognize when it works. Do you see, Natasha? Can you point out the ones?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
And this one is kind of okay.
Yeah, yeah. Really getting there. There's, you know, slight disproportion from side to side. And, you know, you have to make mistakes. Because what happens is you discover happy accidents after rehearsing the thing. But the more you draw these, the better they are. And you really get a sense, you know that it's successful when you get a sense that it sits flat on that surface, right? Well done. Paige. You're muted, hon.
Oh, sorry. I was
that's
just
all
saying
right.
that I also didn't understand the base, but I'll redo it now that you've done your tutorial.
Okay. No, that's fine. See, you understand after I drew what I drew, what it is that you're looking at, because the drawing in the top, slightly left of center.
Yeah.
That's as if I'm standing right in front of it. So if I'm standing right in front of it, it just converges behind itself.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're starting to get a sense of the ellipses are quite good.
Okay.
Now it's a matter of controlling the shape and the angle, the oblique angle of the base, the inscribed square of the base. Good. Who's next that hasn't gone? Emily, go ahead. There are some very successful episodes in there. You guys see it? Do you see places where, and it's almost like the looser you were with your hand, the more precise the thing. I love the one in the bottom left, right? I mean, you start to bottom my left.
Owen?
Yeah. Because even though it's very light, it's somewhat faint, but it's very loose, and you started to let go a little bit with the hand and really get a sense of what the shape of that ellipse is, right?
Yeah.
where you started to shade it, that there's an interesting beginning of something here, but you're not going to get even both sides. You know, you're not going to, both sides of it are going to, the strength in these drawings are going to be when one side has a bit more emphasis than the other. Not necessarily that one side is in shade, but that you treat it with a bit more emphasis. And that's going to give me the feeling that I'm looking at one side or the other, one side that's facing light and one side that's closer to me. But I think, so which one came first? I'm curious, which one came last and what was the last drawing you did?
These two were kind of like in the beginning. I was trying to like figure
Yeah.
out how to draw those, and then I did this one. I did like that stuff, and then this might have been my last one or one of those. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
well, I'm gonna guess that it's the one you pointed to, the lighter one. The other two are you kind of lost the shape of you lost the contour of the circle in the upper one. It all sort of, you know, sort of veers off in one direction. So try to see how you managed to construct that one on the bottom left and continue with that. That's very well done.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Who haven't we seen yet? Does somebody else want to go? Molly, okay.
So this is mine.
Oh boy, wow, wow. So this is a drawing I would want to send home to my parents. You've done something very sophisticated here. You've both recognized the Paraline projection, and you also very successfully achieved the perspective slightly oblique ellipse in the drawing in the middle there. I think you really have it under control. And do you see how Molly's drawn some guidelines that helped make sure that the lines were converging somewhere? Even if it doesn't have to be precise, it just has to be believable. That you get a sense that those lines, that thing is smaller, the part of it that's further away from me. That's really, really well done. And if you can do that, you can solve the entire drawing, right? It's going to be a bit easier than that for us because we're going to use trace, you know, to really study that. But it's critical to understanding the structure of the drawing by doing this. That's well done, Molly. Thank you so much.
you.
Who hasn't gone yet? Maybe Janet, okay. Same, I'm going to make the same observation in the bottom, on the left page, is that bottom, you start to appreciate the perspective. That's wonderful that you're looking up at the capital as well, and you yeah, and then you recognize that the ellipse is inverted when you're looking up at it. A little bit different, right?
It's easier to draw it from the top down rather than from the bottom up.
I wonder why. Why do you think that's the case?
Is it like a different perspective maybe, or?
Yeah, well, you know what it is? Sometimes I notice that the certain drawings I have an easier time when I project something one way or another. I think it's a perception. It's some kind of difference in perception. But if you think of it, you're really drawing a mirror image of the same shape, right? we're doing the same thing. And I love the last drawing on the page, the right-hand page, where you have, yeah, just the ellipse and the perspective. You really start to get a sense. So the ones that are successful are the ones where you achieved exactly what you did there, and then the top and bottom view of the capital. Yeah, I think those are coming along. Well done. Yeah. Did we get to everybody? Did we leave anybody out? Yes, Ashley? That's very ambitious that you started in on shaping that space, and it seems like you have that well in hand. These are good. The isometric is good. You really want to practice making the shapes so that they don't become pointed at the edges. Okay. And that comes with just continuing that in a direction. Even if you fill a page with shapes like that, right? You will, yeah. So you see the one on the left, it looks kind of like a snowman like that. Well, that wouldn't happen. Those are going to be much more compressed. So think of it, when you have this thing, you see when I bend that, you see what happens to it? Becomes much shorter at the outside edges. And so that's what you want to, let me get a square happening here.
So kind of like more like this one.
Yes, except that those you got to avoid getting pointy at the end. So you want to rehearse the ellipse drawing. I mean, that's not quite a circle, but you see what happens when you flatten that out. You see the shape. I should just print a circle on a piece of paper and show it to you guys. So just practice drawing that ellipse, practice drawing that shape, even at the risk of making some mistakes, and it'll come. That's well done. Who hasn't gone yet? Okay.
Sandra, I can go.
Who said that?
Catherine?
Oh, Catherine, yes, go ahead. Yeah, remember your color, if you draw in some kind of color, it's somewhere down the line, it's gonna compete with your perception of what it is that you're doing, because it reads, when you use color, it reads as a particular tone. It reads as light or dark. Go ahead and hold that up again. Let me see. Okay, that some of these are really, really successful. The one near the top, the ones around the top, and the one at the very bottom, and looking up at the capital, you see how rehearsing those really starts to control that, so that at some point, and I'm going to guess those are the later drawings, having practiced the ellipse, you got it to sit there, and that's wonderful. That one just sits right on the ground, and that's what you wanted to do, the one where your hand is near the top there. So that at some point, work in black and white, and it doesn't matter if it's pen or pencil, right? People have a preference for both. I like the contrast of the pen, but the ink drawing, the drawings, the first set of drawings that we do for folio 1 are necessarily done in ink. So you will want some kind of fine pen drawing. Is there anybody who hasn't shown? Anna, have you shown yours?
No, I can show.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna guess that's that procession that leads backwards. It came a little bit later, but do you see how the ones where you started to practice the shape are much more successful? The one in the bottom center is a great example of what happens in the Paraline projection, right? Where all the axes are equal. The perspective, you see the difference in the perspective where that ellipse starts to tilt a little bit. I think what you want to do when you draw these, draw them a little more lightly when you're practicing. Do you have some other drawings where you practice that, or is that the only page you have?
This one is the only page I have.
Okay. Okay, so the next page, what you want to do, I'll share my screen. I think, am I sharing my screen now? Okay. So the next drawing that you want to do, use a fine tip pen, like a fine or extra fine. Try to make light shapes so you can see what you're doing. Try to make them concentric or the same place, instead of, doing this from the start. Use a lighter pen and then go in and emphasize the result, what you've already done. So you see what I'm doing? Once you've done a bunch of these, in one of the classes that I teach, we do a drawing. We do a drawing of a bicycle. Every year or every class, a different person brings in a bicycle. But think of the perspective of a bicycle. The ellipses, right? That form after I've drawn a little of it, right, I start to get a sense And these are concentric ellipses, right? So I'm practicing that with a view towards identifying this. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways to take that theme and repeat it. I pointed out like the hole in the guitar last time. That's something else that you can study. I don't think I've ever had a class that says, yes, we like, oh yeah, that's right, we meet this afternoon. So go ahead with that feedback. If you have the time, let's work on some of those drawings. And if somebody wants to, when we start this afternoon, we'll look at how those drawings improved as a result of practicing, of rehearsing this, okay? And I'll see you guys in a while. Anna, I haven't forgotten that I have to put together recording or otherwise present to you. But basically, we're emphasizing in the afternoon what we started to do in the morning section. So I'll make sure that, you know, to make this stuff available for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, guys, I'll see you later on. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, so Professor,